We share. Oh, take a ride. My husband and I live in a very comfortable house in Lekki. We are not poor people by normal standards. I mean, we work hard. We can afford basic necessities. We are doing just well. And we are loving. Yes, we love ourselves like a lot. We have disagreements like every other couple, but it is not that bad that we have to consider divorce. And you cannot say that we are not happy. However, all of this is on the surface, as I have just uncovered a conspiracy that can make someone commit murder. A conspiracy that, trust me, it can make someone commit murder. So it all started the day I came home from a trip a day earlier. I had spoken with my husband that morning, and I told him that I will not return until the next day. However, my boss slumped at the conference venue that morning, and I had to rush her to the hospital. When she got better, she insisted that I should take her home. Her family is in the east, so she said I should take her home to her family. So I called the family, and they picked her up from the airport. And so she insisted that I should just book the last flight back to Lagos that same day. So I called my husband to tell him about the change in plans, but I could not reach him. So I got home successfully, and when I got to my house, I realized that there was no light and the generator was running. And my husband had mentioned several times that he was going to change the generator, but then he never got to do it. The problem with the generator is that it makes a lot of noise. So when I opened the door to the sitting room, I now saw clothes scattered all over the floor. I was wondering, So I followed the trail of clothes to our bedroom, and that was where I met a very disgusting and disturbing sight. So right there on our matrimonial bed was my husband and another man smooching and doing things that I was raised to believe that only men should do with women. I was actually shocked. Like, never would I have imagined he would do this. And all of a sudden, I got fascinated. So I took a seat at the entrance of the room, and I watched that man and my husband jumping on each other until they were exhausted. I did not confront them. I simply sneaked to the guest bedroom where I slept. So my husband called me an hour later to ask me if all was well and why I kept calling. So I told him that I wanted to tell him that I decided to come home. I wanted to come back home that day since my boss was ill and she has been taken to her family in the east. So he replied with, "I hope that witch dies." I was shocked, and I had to ask him why he would make such wicked wish for another human being who had done nothing to him. And in his defense, he said he did not like her because I was always complaining that she stresses me out. I told him that it is not enough reason to still wish death on someone. He said I was just pretending to be unhappy so that it wouldn't seem as though I liked her a lot. I was honestly surprised. I mean, yes, she stresses me out, but I have never told him that I wish her any form of evil. All I wished for was just a break from her demanding and tasking attitude. Not death on her. No, I'd never do that. Anyway, he laughed and he told me to call him when I leave the hotel. But I told him that I already got a hotel room, so I cannot come that night. So I'll just make plans to come back home the next morning. So he told me how he misses me so much. He even promised to come and pick me up at the airport the next day. We said our good night and ended the call. So the next morning from the guest room, I could hear my husband and his partner making plans to meet up later and leaving the house. So when both of them left, I went to the gate man's house and I asked him, how long has that man been visiting us? The gate man looked at me like I was drunk, so I had to repeat the question again. He told me that the man was my husband's friend now. I told him that I didn't know. He said, but madam, sometimes you dey house when him dey come visit na, even the days where him dey sleep for house. I asked him what time he comes in and he said that he comes in with Oga, but he doesn't alight from the car until Oga don't enter house, come take permission from me. He said he always wondered why I would only let the man in when it is close to midnight. He said my husband even threatened him with sack that morning if he tells me that the man was in the house. He even said, he asked me why I told him not to tell my husband that I came back the night before, and I told him not to worry, I'll explain to him in due season. While I was still thinking about all of this, my phone rang and it was my husband calling to find out what time I planned to leave the airport. I told him my flight had been moved to late afternoon and he sounded worried and expressed concern for me. But I told him that I was fine and I hung the call after we had said our usual, I love you, I miss you, and all the sweet nonsense. I am shattered and heartbroken. Did I marry a homosexual? How long has he been like this? Is he bisexual? What do I even do? I love him. I love him so much that I don't want to divorce him. Wait, can I even change him? Considering the Nigerian legal system, will the judge dissolve our marriage without proof from me? That's if I want to go ahead with the divorce. Will I get my share of the property if I file for divorce without proof? Who would believe me when I tell them that I want to divorce a man who treats me like a queen? Can I even tender the video in court to prove my reason for asking for a divorce? What if he's sent to jail for it? Can I even live with myself? What do I tell my family who will not accept the talk of divorce? Wow. Well, while I was still considering all of this, my phone rang again, and this time it was my boss. I felt guilty because I did not call her that morning to ask about her health. So I took the call and she asked me if I had gone back to Lagos. I wanted to lie to her, but I decided to just tell her the truth. So she was silent for so long that I thought she had ended the call. So she told me, because she was still on the call, she told me to report to the office the next day, and then she ended the call. So I stayed at home that day checking our house to see if there was anything out of the ordinary, but I found nothing. Instead, I saw things that showed that my husband was working hard for both of us. Our properties were bought in both our names, same with our investments. In the evening, I called and told my husband that I had come home with my boss and that her driver had picked us up from the airport, so there was no need for him to pick me up. He asked me lots of questions about when we got back, time, and if she was acting strange. I told him that she's not feeling fine and that she was very quiet. He just and asked me if she said anything about going to work tomorrow. I told him that she said nothing, but that I am going to work tomorrow. Last. When my husband came back, he was cold and I don't know, careful or cautious. He kept looking at me and asking me if everything was okay. I said yes and kept quiet. That night, he came to make love to me, but I could not respond. I pushed him away because I could not just stand him. He asked again if all was well and why I am being like that. He claimed to have missed me so much and wanted to make love to me, but for the life of me, I could not respond to him. So I told him I was just tired and he left me. So by midnight, I woke up and he was not in bed. So I went to look for him and I heard him talking to someone on the phone. So he told the person that he cannot bring himself to harm his wife. That's me, because I'm a sweet soul. Besides, he said he needed to have a wife so that his mother would not bother him about getting married and to also avoid people gossiping about him. Well, the next morning, I rushed out of the house very early to work. Immediately I got to the office, I met my boss who was already at the office, and she was looking worse. She wasn't herself. Her face was swollen. She had bruises all over her body. When I saw her in the office, I was shocked. But it did not prepare me for what is to come. She did not wait for me to say anything. She started crying and accusing me of trying to swindle her of everything she had with my wicked husband, who had lured her husband into homosexuality. I was shocked. I didn't know what to say to her. She threatened to lock me up and get justice for her family. At that point, I started debating whether to tell her about my husband and defend myself, or if I should just quit my job. But what about my husband? What did her husband tell her? I had to get answers. So I tried to calm her down and ask questions. I discovered that the people she had hired to follow her husband had sent her pictures of my husband and her husband together. This was the reason why she slumped at the conference. She had been battered by her husband, who got angry that she had him followed. He blamed her for hiring me when I was the one who planned with my husband to turn him into what he is so that he will help us take her money and kill her. That sounded like the most hilarious thing I had ever heard. In spite of everything, I started laughing at the whole nonsense. She went ahead to play a voice note of my husband and her husband planning to kill her. It took me a long time to calm her down and ask her if she doesn't realize that I am also a victim here. I showed her the video I took of my husband and her husband, and I played the recording I took of my conversation with our gate man. She was shocked. I confronted my husband after some days. He confirmed all that I had told him. He begged me to stay and pretend to be his wife for the sake of his mother and appearances. He promised me heaven and earth. I asked him if he planned to kill my boss, but he denied it and said that was what her husband wanted. He further said that her husband, his lover, was trying to get rid of me since I know their secret and might expose them. So my husband told me that the man will kill me if I expose them. And his wife wants me to help her expose them, or she will fire me and deal with me. I still love my husband. I know this is just too much, but I love him. He has been a good man to me. Where will I run to? How will I escape this whole mess with my life intact, considering the man he's entangled with? Please share and inspire. Advise me like your sister. What do I do? I can't think. This is just too much. This is overwhelming.